Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started with Steve. So this was RainierBob taking black and Steve taking white.
Appreciate it. Happy holidays to everyone who's watching tonight.
Same to you. And this goes for, I mean, Steve, obviously, you should feel free to chime in, but I don't want to limit it to just the players. If anyone has a question, definitely chime in and ask. So Steve, I know you didn't play this, but what do you think Black's response should be here?
Actually, I don't know. I kind of like putting pressure either from the 017 side or like even the R15, just putting pressure on that stone some way.
So, oh, you're sorry. I'm as black now. You would play which mode?
So I was saying that maybe taking a base and swiping, making it a floating stone some way, there. Even in my mind, I think even the Q17 is a strong move, just in the fact that it again makes white a baseless.
I think that Q17 would be certainly playable here. I think that kind of the classic Go theory that we think of in this Chinese formation is playing at Q14, with the idea being that white will play here, black plays here, white plays here, and black plays here, and it's kind of forcing white to live very small. And in this way, it's what typically ends up happening is white lives very small here, but black gets influence on both sides, and it's still there's still some points for invasion later on, so that's going to be a very small territory. But more specifically, maybe rather than going through the complicated variation, we don't want to play this P17 move because we don't want to let white switch sides and take the outside where there's where our black stones are not going to be able to be useful. So this is definitely a success for white. Oh, excuse me, yeah, success for white. Because we're getting territory in the corner as black, but this stone at L17 isn't really being used very well. And we want to make sure that all of our stones are effective. So you played here in the game. This is definitely a mistake. Really should be at 016.
Everything was telling me to play there, and I just balked at the cutting point.
Yeah, so here's the thing. This fixes your cutting point, right? If black plays here, you extend one more, and now there's no cutting point, right? You just ladder it.
Right.
Typically what happens is black will play something like this.
Right. I saw that in my AI review.
But this is a good result for white because black is still sort of needing a move at this 017 point, right? If black doesn't play 017, then later on white gets to play 017, which stops black from connecting these two stones and creates a weak group for this L17, and by virtue of that doing a weak group for this F17 move, right? So it may not be the move that white wants to play right now, but it's certainly something that white can consider later on. I mean, kind of the natural way of thinking about what's going to happen is maybe something like this happens. Something like this, and now when white plays at 017, white got to attack this F17 stone and then also gets to attack this L17 stone. And it's hard to say any of these moves in the upper left were huge mistakes or anything like that, but because of that 017 weakness, this is going to be a good fight for white.
Yeah, that's nice. That looks nice.
So playing here at Q14, unfortunately, it is protecting the cut, but not as efficiently as we could. And we also really don't want to let black get this move here because that makes these four stones really weak. This move at 016 is definitely the button point, even after you play the diagonal. And so I don't know if you saw the chart for the AI, but as soon as black played here, it gave white the advantage, and then as soon as white played here, it gave black the advantage by like 5 or 10%. So it really just makes sense, and then immediately it liked black's move here.
Yep.
This was fine. Let's see. So this next move by black is maybe a little questionable. Same. So, typically we're really focusing on getting Sente early on in the game. And so playing here gives black an opportunity to get Sente, because what black can do is black can play here, white will Atari, black will connect, and then white will play here. And now this formation, even though it seems like black didn't get very much, later on black could capture the side, but it's also building up strength over here, and it gives black Sente. So locally it looks a little odd, right? We have this kind of ugly shape for black, not really a lot of points, but it works well with the stones that we have at L16, at L17, and it gives black that Sente to play a large move elsewhere. So I think this was probably B17, maybe a slight mistake, but I think that playing here right now also a little questionable, because now it gives black it loses black Sente. So this is also just a really nice variation to know, and something you'll see a lot in pro games nowadays. Again, even though it looks super ugly, it works well with this L17 stone, and it gives you that Sente that you really want in the opening. And black can still get points here too.
I've seen that, so I appreciate the explanation that it's really about Sente there. Okay, that makes sense. I never really understood that when I've seen it played.
Yeah, happy to. And typically white will follow it up with this, and then black will play something like this. This is your kind of standard, or black will play something like this. One of these two moves, but something will be answered, and you'll notice that it actually reverts to the variation where it almost reverts to this, right? The only thing is that 1 and 2 aren't exchanged, right?
Mm-hmm.
And typically black will either add a move by playing here or by jumping by playing here. In this case, because there's already a stone at L17, black would extend by playing here. So it roughly creates the same variation, or it should create the same variation where play here, except this is slightly better for white because white hasn't lost a liberty yet.
Mm.
And so that liberty could certainly come into matter in this fight over here as well. So a lot of subtle nuances to it, but I would say that the core of it is really, you want Sente so early on, and playing at E18, even though it seems like a good shape move, gets you territory, it's not quite giving you that Sente, which is so valuable. And again, this follow-up move by E16 is at E16 is really important, because if white plays anything else, black's going to play here and get a really strong position in Sente. So this is just such a nice variation for black. So black approached here. This is fine. Typically, we'll see a little bit further of an extension. I can see why you played here, because you don't want to be cut off when you play here, but you don't really have to worry too much about being cut off. You're not black. I apologize. You don't really have to worry too much about this C7 stone, because black could just sacrifice and connect up without too much difficulty. Something like this could happen, which is a really nice result for black. It's just outward influence, and white really hasn't gained very much. So we typically like to play a little bit further away, and even if white has an extra move here, it doesn't really change the fight all that much. Probably my recommendation, if you're going to play anything here, well, first I would certainly play at E16. Let's preface that. But if you're going to play anything, if you're going to play local, you really want to get as close as possible, because you don't want to give black that space to wiggle out. And let's say you were to do this variation and then played here. Your group in the upper left is pretty strong. It has the strength to survive an invasion at C12. And so for that reason, again, you want to get closer. You want to reduce the space that black could use to make eyes.
If he invades at that C12, what's my preferred response to that then? Right. Yeah, right there. Exactly.
I think you could play here.
Okay.
I think there's certainly some Aji. It's not a perfectly living group, but black also has to be worried about this group too.
Right. Yeah. Now I can pick on two groups. Yeah.
And so maybe even do something like this. It gets pretty complicated, but there should be something here that white could do without really screwing in the pooch.
Yeah, I was trying not to get too complicated because I have an extremely worthy opponent. I've known him for a long time through AYD, and he's well above me.
Gotcha. I mean, you're doing fine in the game. I think that there was a little bit of a deficit here, but I think it kind of caught up with you with black's kind of position down here is also not that great. So I think it's pretty even right now. I don't think one side over the other has too much gain. This move at e6 is probably a little bit questionable as well, because black doesn't need to care about these two stones anymore. Black just cared that white wasn't getting this whole side. So these two stones here are much more important, right? Like, think about this. If white plays here, black jumps, are you going to now try to capture these two stones? Probably not, right? Even if you could, you wouldn't. They're just not worth that much. They're worth only the points that they sit on. So I'd rather kind of attack these stones as a whole. So if I was going to attack anything, I would want to attack like this. But I think that may be too premature. So maybe after I play this, I might focus on expanding my lower side here, or yeah, I would say probably expanding the lower side would be a good option. I just don't think that there's going to be that much pressure put on these two stones here, and what black could always reduce by playing here. This move by black seems kind of dubious. Black already has a somewhat weak group here, and it's just inviting white to pick on it. So what I would expect to happen is something like this. Maybe white gives up these two stones, but gets a really severe attack on these stones over here. And these stones also aren't alive yet either. So I think this would be a nice way for white to play, which means that this move by black is probably a little bit questionable. And similarly, playing here is kind of just allowing black to get away with that questionable move, right? It's saying, okay, you know what, you were trying to get a little bit of influence. I'm not, I'm going to let you get that influence and connect, get your groups a little bit further out. This move at h4, much too small. Really, the only thing you should be thinking about is playing here. Black's going to have kind of an annoying time to connect. There's a lot of peeps here, right? If black plays away, white can peep, and then black can gets cut off, right? And this is going to be super annoying for black. If black plays locally to try to connect, you have a peep here, which is kind of annoying for black, so black has to connect. And this is just such ugly shape for black, right? So really, the vital point is definitely at c10 right now. Anything else should be just taken off because it's so immediate how quickly black needs to respond. If black doesn't play here, it plays here instead, immediately cut, right? And you're also, because you played this e6 stone, your lower side is really strong. So playing here right now just is not necessary. If your opponent were to, so let's say, black plays here right now, you're not going to play here to try to get the territory. You're going to play here to attack it because you have strength here, right?
Right.
And I don't know if you were here for the first lesson, but I was kind of saying that when you have strength, you don't use strength to get territory. You don't use influence to get territory. You use influence to attack. And so playing at h4 is kind of using your influence to get territory, and that's just kind of counterintuitive. Okay. And I will say the extension of that phrase is play influence to get play influence to attack to get territory. Again, this e10 stone is still huge. If black gets here, it gives black a base. This group is perfectly alive, and white still needs to answer. Otherwise, it's going to get a really small upper left corner. Probably a little bit small. We don't really need to sealing this white group in doesn't do anything. We'd much rather just take points at this point. I still think anything on the board should really be at c10. So all these moves elsewhere really just need to be positioned here. Even though black got a little bit more strength here, these peeps are going to be really painful for black. So this move at L15, do we like it? Do we not like it? What do we think before I comment on it?
You know, I went back and forth about it for so long. I just kept trying to read out the formation, and again, I felt like, you know, it was going to give us both a Moyo. And so again, I just decided that I'd keep the pressure on and try to create that, you know, that larger side. But I wasn't satisfied with it. I'll tell you that.
Sure. So let's go back a couple moves, and maybe that'll help you figure out whether I like the move or not. What was the purpose of this move?
Down. Just again, you know, like reducing the amount of black influence that's there. You know, as I thought I had the sky to run to, and I could, you know, kind of push down if I needed. So it was all a reduction in my mind. So, but I was way behind enemy lines, right?
So when you jump here, that's okay, right? Maybe just extending might be a little bit better, but when you jump here, your focus should be protecting the stone, or at least the idea of the stone, if that makes sense. So when you play here, what you're basically doing is you're giving black 15 points, 20 points.
Right.
So it's completely counterintuitive. If you play here on this side, black's influence doesn't get black anything. You know, so if black wants to capture this one stone, not that big a deal. So this is how we should be thinking about the stone, right? By playing here, you've given black exactly what it wanted, this shape here, all this territory. It's as if this stone is wasted. You know, it's as if, why not, you know, at this point, you could have just played here and it already would have been a better result for black or for white, because you're not wasting that extra stone. You know, I don't mean to be hypercritical, but that's kind of, you know, it goes against your own idea, right? Like it goes against your own idea of, I want to reduce black. I do want to be a little mindful because we're almost at the 20-minute point. Was there anything in this game? You know, also just quick comment here. Black should definitely come and play here or jump out. Black needs to keep these groups separated. This is such an easy attack for black, and not playing here would be very questionable. You know, whether black plays just this to be a little bit safer or wants to try to get aggressive and playing here, one of the two has to happen. But was there anything that I covered that you wanted me to elaborate a little bit more on, or something that you want me to look at closer to the end of the game?
No, I think, again, I think that's a good review, and it's very helpful, especially on the two. This last comment about how I was utilizing that move is really important for me to look at very carefully, I think. And then I need to be more mindful, like you said, too, of these, you know, as something as simple but powerful as that C10 move. I really got to study that harder. So I think you've done a great job. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, happy to help. Glad you got something out of it.